Gentlemen and female gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Lore. That's right, here on the Lore channel on Nuxtaku, this guy with beautiful hair made a video discussing if Nazism is right-wing or left-wing. And I'm very excited to do a deep dive because I personally think it's left-wing. I mean, they definitely are authoritarian, which is generally more right-wing, but Nazism is National Socialism. And so I'm excited to see what the actual analysis is all about.
Was Nazism left-wing or right-wing?
All right,
Believe
let's
it or
go.
not, this question gets asked around a lot, and there are several creators that provided answers. Well, the thing is that today's answer will be grounded on history and political science. But before we do that, let's talk about the question proper.
All right, let's do it.
This question is a form of ahistorical syllogism. You'll see several people giving you answers today in the comments down below. The same people will not watch this video and they will type either obviously was right-wing or of course it was left-wing. In my opinion, there are two major problems here. One, they use the American left-right dichotomy
true.
or
For
political
sure.
spectrum and they
True.
forcefully apply it to historical European political regimes
Yeah.
and ideologies. Hence, the first problem with the question proper is geographic or spatial in nature. Two, they use 21st century political spectra and juxtapose them over 20th century politics. Thus, the second problem is temporal. The incongruence between
Fair.
modern and 20th century
I
political
mean, especially because, like, you see the parties flipping and switching all the time, right? You know, like, I mean, the left is always the party of racism and violence, but for different reasons, it seems.
definitions within the right-left dichotomy is a complex phenomenon rooted in evolving socioeconomic shifting of global dynamics. Thus,
See, the KKK used to be left-wing, and it is actually still left-wing. See Don Lemon invading churches.
this discrepancy necessitates of a nuanced analysis of the factors that contribute to this divergence. Within these dynamics, the correct and coherent answer is going to be fractal, as there is no clean definition overlap. History is a multidimensional phenomenon. Expecting, therefore, 21st
Alright.
century American political ideas to overlap neatly and perfectly
True.
with 20th
True.
century European political factions
True.
in order to come out with an answer is a flawed analytical method. So, the people who are categorically stating it was left-wing, it was right-wing, are not answering to present a comprehensive analysis of policies, ideologies, historical actions, military interventions,
Fair.
economic, religious, and social positions pushed
true.
by said regimes.
This is
They
all
are just
true.
insulting the other side. They are free to do it, of course, but just so we are clear about
Which is a very good point. Which is why I say it's left-wing, just to piss off left-wing people. It's very fun. It's very fun. One of my favorite things to say to piss off left-wing people is just by basically saying Nazism is left-wing. Now, the reality is, it is left-wing, right? I don't want to be controversial here or anything. It literally is a hyper-socialist party. It's about, you know, completely uniting all the power under one fucking dictatorial ruler, tyrant fucker, and that dude literally owns all the things. So yeah, no, of course it's left-wing. What are you talking about? They believe in all the artsy-fartsy stuff, right? Just like all the libtards, all right? These artsy-fartsy. And he believes in literally treating different ethnic groups differently. Specifically, also, look, I don't even need to be controversial here over at all. Like literally at all.
what those answers.
Like, dude, like the whole we have to abolish, destroy the rich, defund the rich, or whatever. That aligns exactly with Nazism. It's incredible.
Make no mistake, Nazi is a slur, and so people want to use it to identify and describe their political opponents. That is why, I would argue, it works as a conduit to the detriment of your political opposition when it comes to mass and public opinion. In this framework, fascism and Hitler currently have negative valence, they are derogatory, and with that established, the following closely represents the train of thought leading to this usage. Nazi bad. We all agree with that? Okay. You Nazi. You bad. It's a simple
That's
process,
how it
really.
works.
Clearly doesn't require...
I would argue that it's even worse than that, actually. I would argue that it's you Nazi, and therefore we kill Nazis, so therefore we should kill you. And that's why the left is super happy to call people on the right Nazis, not because they think they're Nazis, but basically to give themselves an excuse to murder you. Because the left is a completely and utterly God-devoid, hedonistic group of retards that want you dead. Now, you probably think, whoa, are you really putting everyone in one group? There's so many differences of thought. True. But most of them are retards that want... Okay, I don't know about most of them. But a lot of them are actually retards that want you dead.
any deep empirical analysis grounded on historical political science, which is one of the reasons why the media uses the word constantly. Yeah, who would have thought the media's full of shit? You see, once you take that leap, your historical vision will be irreversibly tainted. The question is flawed to begin with because its basis, namely the expectations and the prism of evaluation, are not in alignment. And on top of that, this has rendered the traditional unidimensional political spectrum increasingly inadequate for capturing the complexity of 20th century political parties. And all of this reflects the ongoing evolution of political taxonomy. So, what do we do now? Well, to answer this correctly, first, we need to ensure objectivity to our analysis. Focus on attitudes towards private property, individual freedom, and wealth redistribution patterns. If
Leftist. Yep. No private property. It all belongs to the state. No, distribute all the wealth. You just kill the rich Jews and you redistribute it to everybody else. Yep, we know.
Needed, even implementing a mathematical apparatus. Also, we should explore and take into consideration the political allegiances that occurred historically.
Dude, you want to hear the craziest thing that that proves that Nazism is left-wing? So, in Nazism, they remove people from the gene pool to not pass down genes that they don't want to be passed down, to remove traits from the next generation, and by murdering a lot of people. And leftists literally institutionalized a modern-day child holocaust, murdering infinite babies. All right? Literally murdering people for the sake of not passing down genes to the next generation. That's right. Leftists are the modern-day eugenicists, just like Nazis.
And the sort of opposition to the regime in question, the Nazis. So let's do that. Welcome to our comprehensive qualitative analysis.
Yeah.
Some people will
Planned Parenthood is a Nazi ideology.
Use nomenclature as a gotcha moment to place the Nazis within the political spectrum. In other words, Nazism stands for National Socialism, so they were socialists, hence left-wing. Yeah. Now, nomenclature alone cannot be used as the basis for classification. It's too shallow and unscientific as a parameter. This is regardless of whether you think they were left-wing or right-wing. Let me prove it to you. If the name of any given party is the basis of the argument
the name doesn't prove everything, but it definitely did get that name for a reason.
Where they stand within the left-right dichotomy, then is the Communist Party in China Republican in the American sense? I mean, it's
the Communist Party of China. It's obviously left-wing.
The People's Republic of China.
Oh, get the fuck out of here. That's not the same as socialism. Okay? Republic doesn't mean fucking anything. That's get out of here. No. That is not the same as saying communism in the name or socialism in the name. Socialism is a left-wing ideology. Republic isn't a right or left-wing ideology. God, bro, republic is a description of a nation. Get out of here, bro. This is the most false dichotomy of all time. Words don't have meanings. What do you mean? I know that he's obviously kidding. Probably. But nah, dude.
Similarly, is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, aka...
Bro, stop! Republic isn't an ideology! Dude, it's a form of governance! It's not an ideology! Unlike communism, which is an ideology. Socialism, which is an ideology. Left-leaning ideologies.
North Korea really...
Bro, the United States is called the United States! We're all united, like collectivism.
Democratic?
Here,
yeah, didn't think so. And if you really want to break your brain, I made a video not too long ago talking about ancient democracies, such as, for example, Greek democracy, which was a form of pure democracy, and then I compared it to modern democracies and to see what they differed and what areas they had in common. Well, in the comment section of that video, as it happens, my American viewers began a flame war, whereby you had people saying, no, America is a democracy, and other people saying, no, America is a constitutional republic. Right. Well, do you know what Italy is? Well, after the referendum of the 2nd of June 1946, Italy abolished monarchy and became officially, wait for it, una repubblica democratica, that translates as a democratic republic. Yeah, welcome
Very
to Europe.
cool.
You think that's confusing? Well, in the United States, simple liberalism often means social liberalism, and a liberal is a left-winger. But in Europe, simple liberalism often means
That is
classical liberalism, which can be a center-right position, particularly for those right-wing populist movements that embrace economic policies which in America would be associated with the left, while at the same time promoting cultural and social conservatism. And on that note, since we're talking about what a party named itself, do you want to know what Hitler said when it comes to left or right? Well, Hitler denied that Nazism was either left-wing or right-wing. Instead, he officially portrayed Nazism as a, open quotes, syncretic movement. Yeah, let's ditch the whole name argument, shall we?
Except the name argument does make sense because they were literally socialist. You know? Like, I'm not trying to be controversial or anything. They were literally socialist. The name argument.
Unless I missed it, the Nazi Party before Hitler rebranded it was originally a left-wing Labour Party.
Does have an effect here. This is not the
If
same
anything, it just appealed to look more moderate for more mass appeal.
as calling something a republic, okay?
So what do I propose as an alternative? Well, personally, I think that the best way to define Nazism is a totalitarian dictatorship. That's going to be our basic core definition to identify what we are talking
fair.
about, instead of using the American left-right spectrum. Then, after having established firmly what Nazism is, we can then look at the policies one by one and decide from an American contemporary perspective which of these lean right and which lean left, based on their salience. Alright, that sounds good on paper, but let's try if it works. What defines totalitarianism? Centralized authority, strength in the military, militarism with resources directed to domestic population, authoritarianism and dictatorial rule, repression of freedom of speech and freedom of the press, systematic elimination of political opposition by violence, expansionistic foreign policies, and conquest through military might. Already note that all three historical totalitarian regimes of the 20th century fit very neatly within this box: German Nazism, Italian fascism, and Soviet communism. In other words, when we examine the
In other words, they're all left-wing. Wait, did I say that out loud?
manifestations of these 20th century regimes strike.
All right, hold up. We have to look at this 1 second. Hold up. People are going to be upset. All right, centralized authority. Okay, Asmongold believes in that. Strength in the military. All right, Asmongold believes in that. Militarism with resources directed to domestic population. Yeah, Asmongold believes in that. Authoritarianism and dictatorial rule. No, I wouldn't say I wouldn't go that far. Repression of freedom of speech and freedom of press. It's not true. All right, Asmongold is not a Nazi, guys. We did the test. Guys. It's okay.
Box: German Nazism, Italian fascism, and Soviet communism. In other words, when we examine the practical manifestations of these 20th century regimes, striking similarities emerge. For instance, the lack of individualism and individual freedom. Benito Mussolini himself publicly stated that fascism is anti-individualistic and accepts the individual only in as far as the interests coincide with those of the state. Well, but then again, communism, fascism, and Nazism might be considered quite different when it comes to their core ideologies. So Metatron, are you really sure that they would fit each and every single one of these? Okay, let me prove it to you. Number one, centralized authority. Absolutely, all three. Strength in the military. Do I even need to comment that? Militarism with resources directed to domestic population. Well, in the case of the Nazi, of course, that meant the Jews, and it meant gypsies, and every single person that opposed the Nazi regime. But when it comes to Stalin, well, he murdered more of his own people than he did of his foreign enemies. Just putting it out there. Authoritarianism and dictatorial rule, repression of freedom of speech. But what about the freedom of speech part? And are we sure? Well, let me prove it to you. Let's do a little thought exercise. You are in 1940s Germany. You disagree with Adolf Hitler's opinions, so you go to Berlin, and in front of the whatever government building that they have there, you say, Hitler was an idiot. Yeah. Do you think you're going to survive that? And into the concentration camps you go. But what about Italian fascism? Well, you go to Rome and you state right in the main plaza, Benito Mussolini was an absolute moron. And there you go, dead in the prison. Well, you probably die before you even reach the prison, but if you do reach the prison, you'll die in there. And once again, let's teleport you to Soviet Russia. You are in front of the Kremlin and you say, Stalin, who is a monster. Gulag, immediate, no freedom of speech. In fact, freedom of speech is the first thing that goes when it comes to totalitarianism. I might make a dedicated video to that. If you appreciate my content so far and wish to help ensure my ability to continue to tell it how it is, regardless of any possible backlash, please support this channel on Patreon. Any support helps me and my team of academics keep the channel strong and gives us the means to fight back against the political rewriting of history. Stand with us. form the wall, defend the truth.
Hell yeah, dude. Same here, by the way.
So what this tells us is that these
Subscribe to me also. Don't forget to go to my Patreon.
are not necessarily unique features of the right or the left, but they manifest as common ground on
They just happen to usually come from leftist parties. Look, man, it's just the reality.
the extremes of said spectrum. It's the horseshoe effect. Extremes touch, even if, ideologically, when compared with communism, fascism is indeed right-wing. You have authoritarian control. Both Hitler and Stalin established it. It was absolute, centralized power. Propaganda and information control. I mean, the Nazis were quite famous for burning books, and a lot of those books were in fact communist books and socialist books, by the way. Terror and repression. And yes, mass executions were common on all of these regimes. Now, in Europe, conventionally, Nazism is generally considered to be a far-right ideology, also due to their allegiances with the fascists in Italy and their countering of Stalin and communism, which is, of course, a left-wing extreme ideology.
Yeah, that's cringe, man. Just because they fought communists in Russia, that does not necessarily...
They wanted to be the communists. They're just jealous of them. That's the whole origin story of them in the first place.
mean at all that they weren't left-leaning. That is a very, very false dichotomy.
22nd of June 1941, and the invasion of the Soviet Union should stand as a clear definition of that. Besides, under Hitler, the newspapers of the Social Democratic parties are banned, functionaries are arrested, and whatnot. But once you start to look at this from the American political perspective, then the situation becomes muddy, if you will, necessitating a more nuanced, item-by-item approach. You see, the Nazis, for example, had nationalized healthcare. Government was deeply involved in every aspect of industry, so we're talking about big government. The Nazis were not in favor of free market capitalists. And yes, I'll defend this one in the next section. And all of this sounds left of center to an American. So it is mixed. On the following section, I'm going to present.
I didn't even hear like the other side. What's the mix? What, that they fought communists in Russia?
The characteristics of the regime, and then
Like, at least Miss Lee was pretty good at pretending to be right-wing. Hitler wasn't even good at it.
you decide where it leans the most towards. This way, we can promote critical thinking. Now, Nazism was characterized by extreme nationalism, state-funded welfare programs. If there
Sounds leftist to me.
were any form of identity politics similar to contemporary political discourse, of course the Nazis would have been against it, but so would have been the communists. They had state control of industries, support for a strong
Leftist.
military, and as we said, repression of freedom of
Military, once again, that could be either right or left. That doesn't mean anything.
speech. Alright, now let's jump into the economic policies. A central idea of communist ideology was opposition to private ownership of the means of production, which blended with economic intervention within the private and public sectors. Now, to that, Nazism was different up to a certain extent. Let me clarify. Their overall economic approach favored big business and opposed labor unions, which of course doesn't make it sound socialist by any means. But we also have to remember a very important factor to this. In Hitler's speeches from 1920s, he clearly established his idea of what National Socialism was going to be. And mind you, it was only for Germans. And as he outlined his party program, he stated, open quote, that nationalization appears to me to be wrong, close quote. So, at least in the 1930s, he was sort of in favor of the idea of maintaining private property. But was he? Well, I do have an opinion on that, but let me quote a sociologist and economist of the period. Check this out. Friedrich Pollock says, open quote, I agree that the legal institution of private ownership was maintained and that many attributes characteristic for National Socialism begin to manifest themselves, albeit still vaguely in non-totalitarian countries. But does this mean that the function of private ownership did not change? I believe it reaches far more deeply and should be described as the destruction of all the essential traits of private ownership.
Interesting. So basically, he's like, yes, of course, private property should be a thing. Anyway, we're just gonna change what private property means.
And I would like to underline that this specific economist saying the private ownership actually wasn't a thing is left-wing. He was a left-wing economist. Moreover, in 1934, Hitler clearly established the fact that to him, wealth was for the national social state.
Leftism.
not for the individual. And yes, the individual could enjoy some of that wealth, but it's thanks to the state.
Yeah.
And in 1942,
Leftism.
when he was in power, he stated, open quotes, the land was national property, and in the end, it's only given to the individual as a loan.
That's the most leftist fucking shit I've ever heard in my life.
National
dude,
board.
I thought this video was gonna be like, well, let me explain both sides. And then it ends up
King
just
of
completely and
progressivism,
utterly
FDR.
defining him as left-wing in every single one of his policies.
Does that sound like private property to you? There is more to it. In 1937, Hitler had already established the fact that he would demand private industries to produce something that the state defined as being necessary. And they had two options. They either do it, which...
I mean, listen, he literally wanted to remove all the undesirables from society, all right? Just like how the left in America wants to remove the undesirables from society, right? He's got the eugenics, he's got eugenicism, he's got the fucking bullshit. All he was, it's like he wasn't a cuck. I'm so vindicated right now, it's insane.
which is great, or they don't, in which case the state will take control of that specific industry sector. It's not big.
Didn't have kids, you know, just like leftists. It's insane. Killed himself. The leftists kill themselves a lot more than people on the right, by the way. I don't know if you're aware. Didn't believe in God. All right, that's a classic leftist trait. Dude, it's crazy. What does he have to do? I don't even see any overlap with basic right-wing or conservative ideologies. He wasn't wrong, though. Yeah, says the retard. He fucked the entire Europe. He destroyed his own country. Aside from the evil that he's done, all right, which is unbelievable levels of evil, millions dead. Aside from all that, Germany is cooked. Europe is cooked. In fact, Europe is still cooked because of Hitler. Hitler was so bad that Europe became this cesspool slop pot, literally, as a pendulum swinging all the other way against Hitler. So they imported infinite retards from the third world because white people are bad because of Hitler. Dude was such a fucking pathetic loser that aside from being unbelievably, demonstrably evil, all right, aside from being unbelievably evil, he also destroyed his country and all of Europe. Here, 80 years later, all of Europe is still destroyed because of how pathetic he is. Also, no balls, no children, no descendants. Honestly, truly incredible how much of a loser he was, aside from being evil.
Big government.
But he did have drip. That I will admit. He had drip.
It's massive government. Alright, but if that's the case, if this is what Hitler believed, and by the way this is confirmed by SS letters even all the way up to 1944, that was exactly his position, and we can see in the way he acted. But if that was the case, then why did he not say private property is abolished? I mean, the Soviets did it. Why did he say, no, private property is still a thing? Well, he said that because it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter that legally there was still a definition for private property as long as what he gets is what he gets. And besides, of course, he understood that in a moment of war, you can't fight outside and also fight inside with the private sector. So he made the statement, private property stays, but then they control all of it, including demand, production, means of production, prices, everything. The government tells you what to produce, who to buy from, and what prices you sell. In other words, at least from an economic standpoint, in the discussion of private property, this was socialism disguised as capitalism. Now, of course, when you compare it to the Soviet Union, that had a complete centrally planned economy, that
doesn't mean anything. It's like saying, well, why are you calling Hitler left-wing if there are other people that are communists? That's like an insane take.
Sound as a...
What is drip? It means his uniform looks sick, all right? And the speeches were good, and the aesthetics are awesome.
Yeah, it's a game code for you look cool.
And they all look based as fuck, and they ended up destroying their country and also all of Europe. They were unbelievable losers. The Nazis, ironically, all right, for, you know, we look at them as evil in modern day society, all right, you know, we look in modern day society, we look at them and we're like, wow, these guys were evil, but people forget how pathetic they were. A lot of people think that they were just evil, but also kind of badass. Like, they were evil and also lame as fuck, but they look cool.
Extreme, but then again, the Soviets had a main goal, which was to increase the military power of the state. Sounds familiar? Alright, now I would like to dedicate a small section to race, because of course this was not only a connection to race.
Dude, it's like, you can't say that racism is a right-wing trait. If anything, racism is a left-wing trait. ironically. All right, and it's important to note that and a lot of people, a lot of people don't know this, okay? But I'm gonna flip it onto your head, okay? Right-wing people, at least the conservatives that are, let's say, religious or more focused on religion or God, they do believe that, different races are different cultures are different. However, literally every single different nation and person is still made in the image of God. All right. It was Christians that abolished slavery, which was a right-wing move. The abolishing of slavery was a right-wing movement. The Democrats started the KKK. The Democrats fought to keep slavery, for those of you that are unaware. And if you look at modern day leftism, you basically have people on the left just openly, utterly, and acceptingly hating white people. Hating white people is just a completely classic, accepted stance to have on the left. All right. White people bad. So that's happening. Also, there's some war going on in Israel that Muslims started. So obviously we have to hate Jews now. All right. That's totally accepted on the left, no problem. Largest leftist political streamer is going out there doing this shit every single day. All right. So the reality is the real racism is on the left. All right. It's stigmatized on the right when you say something like the Somalis have an IQ of 67. When the reality is, and this is going to be a really hot take, Somalis do have an IQ of 67. That's not racism. That's just a fact. All right. Saying that 13% of the population commits 50% of the violent crimes. That's not racism. That's reality. Okay? Hitler wanted to murder people because they were inferior. All right? Viewing people as inferior based on their race is a left-wing issue. I know. People hate me for saying this shit. But that's literally the truth.
And racism was a connection to, I want to say,
like, I'll be real. You look at what leftists do and they talk about in college campuses, and they just laugh and scream back, white people don't have culture. What do you mean? White culture? There is no white culture. Like, the idea of being racist against white is so unbelievably adamantly accepted and basically appreciated in the modern left. So racism is a left-wing issue much more than a right-wing issue.
The ideology, but it was also a congenital element within the system. And another thing that the Nazis did was to put the blame of many of society's problems, particularly of the Germans, to immigration. Moreover, apart from the Holocaust, there was clearly a sort of differential treatment under the law.
Yeah, aside from the Holocaust, whatever.
Based on your racial affiliation.
I totally forgot the Nazis did that too. That's crazy.
Now, this is, of course, real. It happened. And we could...
Besides, look, man, I know this is going to sound weird, but who is more anti-Semitic? All right, like let's use that as a barometer, okay? Where do you see more anti-Semitism? All right, let me ask you a stupid fucking question: from the right or from the left? That's literally burning down synagogues and chanting that they support Hamas. Like, not trying to be controversial here or anything. Not trying to be controversial here or anything, but where do you see more anti-Semitism? From a groiper that says the Jews control the world, or from leftists that literally chant they want to kill Jews? I mean, I made a tweet a while ago, and this goes viral every like week or two. This tweet goes viral on some other account. And this is awesome. So the I Laughed account posted my tweet because they laughed apparently at my tweet. Where I said, "Hi, Jew here. I uniquely get shit from the far right and the far left. I can say with 100% certainty, I would entrust my life to Hitler-heiling, anti-Semitic, Jews control the universe, Nick Fuentes Groiper, named Kill Rape Jews Groiper 42069, over a moderately leftist college student that goes to overwhelmingly peaceful protests and celebrates Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's how bad it is." And then I got a whole lot of death threats for this, obviously, from the left. I know. You can't make it sound stupid. Guess if I got death threats for this. Guess. Psych! Hey, other moderately liberal college students, can we kill Nux Taku? Thanks, man. Very cool. Ironically, like, you just proved me right. It's like, yeah, I don't care. Like, thanks, man. Very cool. Very cool.
can see some of these themes, particularly the ultra-nationalistic ones, in modern-day far-right ideologies. With that being said, let's also remember that if you think that racism denotes right-wing position, then you would classify Karl Marx as a right-winger. And the reason I say that is because if you actually read the article he published in 1844 called On the Jewish Question, you would absolutely consider
Communism is just a fucking whip-off of socialism itself, just as much as fucking... just as much as fascism and Nazism are a whip-off of communism.
to be racist. And also Marx didn't really like Mexicans.
Karl Marx, who was a Marxist, by the way.
That's another thing that he did. And Friedrich Engels said quite a lot of horrible things about black people too.
Yeah, so race, yeah, it's more of a left-wing issue, by the way. Yeah.
Now I would like to talk about an argument that is the one that shocks me the most, and it's the claim that Hitler was a Christian. Now,
Yeah, that's just completely bullshit.
of course, I'm going to debunk this. I'm going to do it by, quoting from Hitler's own words with his own
Hitler liked animals too much to be a Christian.
letters, and then we're going to look at how he changed his rhetoric before and after he became chancellor and then dictator. But before we do all of that, let me just say this. Do you really think that the leader of the most anti-Semitic regime the world has ever seen would have worshipped Jesus of Nazareth? Now, given one of the things
you
that
make
people
a good
say
point,
when they
sir.
underline
You
this
make a
idea
good
that well,
point.
Hitler was
You make a good point. Would the guy that wants to genocide all the Jews worship a Jew? I mean, I'll be real, he makes a good point.
a Christian is that they say that he was baptized as a Catholic, but I'd like to underline that not all Christian religions consider baptism or perform baptism the same way. I mean, differently from, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, the Catholics baptize you when you are a baby. So it's not like Hitler had any say to it. If that alone, the idea of being baptized within the Catholic Church, is enough for you to say, well, Hitler was a Christian, that you should consider Stalin a Christian since he actually went to seminary.
Yeah, I mean, even non-denominational is an offshoot of Baptist, so he could just, in that case, it'd just be subjective whether he thought being baptized saved him or not.
No, so, I mean, another thing is, it's like, getting baptized as a baby is the same thing as, like, being ethnically Jewish, let's say, right? If you're ethnically Jewish, like, Karl Marx was a Jewish guy, I'm pretty sure. Ethnically, he obviously wasn't religious, he wasn't conservative, he didn't believe in God, he was, like, a known atheist, but ethnically, he was Jewish. So it's like, oh my god, it's a Jew! That's the same idea as calling Hitler a Christian, because technically, he was baptized when he was a baby. It's the same idea.
It was orthodox, but still. Hitler's real intent towards the church was eroding the core doctrines of the Christian religion until there was virtually nothing left of its original function in order to slowly substitute it with a puppet used for social control, which would also have followed with the confiscation of all the places of worship, something actually quite similar to what is happening today in China. So that alone doesn't really make me feel confident about, Hitler's Christian beliefs. Oh, and the fact that he shot quite a lot of Polish priests dead. There is that. You see, during the beginning of his political
thou shalt not murder is kind of like central, I think, to like Christianity. I could be wrong, but I mean, Hitler,
career, Hitler publicly expressed favorable opinions towards traditional Christian ideas. That's true, but later he abandoned them. Most historians agree that he was adversarial towards organized Christianity. Oh, and he also criticized atheism, so he had a bone to pick with everyone. Now, if you examine some of his early talks, you'll see that he considered himself as a German Christian. He said, I'm not a Catholic, I'm a German Christian, and even a member of positive Christianity. Not member, but like a supporter of positive Christianity. But you see, positive Christianity is not even Christianity, as they rejected fundamental core doctrines of Christianity, such as the, divinity of Jesus. So yeah, not Christians. And when it comes to German Christians, it was a type of Protestant church or group that supported Nazi ideologies. That's why he said that. Thus, in Hitler's eyes, Hitler detested Christian ethics. He said it was fit for slaves. And
wait, so this dude that detests Christian ethics, they're really gonna say that he was a right-wing guy? Like, come on, dude, what are we doing?
in 1937, he publicly said that the Christian church or Christianity was ripe for destruction. And that doesn't sound like a Christian to me. So,
we do know that Hitler was friends with Muslims.
idea that Hitler was a Christian is nonsense, and his ostentatious hatred towards Christianity wouldn't really work or go very well with, say, modern-day faith and flag right-wing Americans. With all being said, as you can see, there are many aspects to this. Yes, some of it
Yeah, many aspects. He's left-wing, and there's really no other way to discuss this, to be honest.
policies were in fact right-wing, others would have been left-wing.
Yeah, he was
If you were
left-wing.
to take like one of those quizzes online, what you could do is try with your own, with your own understanding of these, you could try it and answer. Like every time you get a question, you could ask a question, what would Hitler respond to that? And
Bro really is trying to do. What would Hitler do?
to do it, and
Right.
you'll see
Alright,
that
dude.
sometimes you'll go right, sometimes you go left. Therefore, Nazism should not be judged by whatever words Hitler crafted, and it should not be considered neither left nor right wing, at least in the political
Hitler was pro-Palestine too. Oh, that's true. He met up with like the Mufti retards over there in Palestine to work with them to kill the Jews in Israel. That's true, by the way.
sense. The only thing in which
That's true. He was the first pro-Palestine. He was the first pro-Palestine leftist. No. All right, we're done. Thanks for the video. Oh yeah, so he was a leftist. That's the end of the analysis. Thanks for watching. Bye. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com.